Welcome back to the next ICG webinar, where we are going to be talking about what's going to happen to the property market in 2021 with the furlough extending people's jobs, with the stamp duty rules changes and mortgage holidays. It's going to be an eventful 2021. So first I'd like to go to Kristjan Byfield, live from Shoreditch with that wonderful beer. Kristjan, where do you see the property market, and specifically with regard to the lettings game?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't dare try and comment on the sales side, but lettings wise, honestly, I think next year for us is going to be very much another year of the same of this year. So this year, transaction volumes are up. Our turnover is going to be pretty much around this where it was last year, this year. So, you know, we're happy with that. I mean, we've seen an increase in transactions, but we are seeing rents on average on our portfolio down about 20%. So those two things sort of balance each other out. I expect next year to be very much the same, probably a slightly higher than normal volume of tenancy transitions, quite a lot more work involved with each tenancy. I mean, it's definitely in London a tenants market at the moment. And the result of that is deals are a lot more involved. There are a lot more requests coming in from tenants, so there's a lot more involved with putting a deal together. But generally, you know, I mean, one of the reasons I became an agent in the first place is you know, people always need a roof over their head. We're not in a trend industry. So as long as you're able to pivot and mold to whatever the market's doing, then you're going to be fine. I think bad markets are good for quality agents. So, you know, it's a good opportunity for us to grow our market share. We're expecting to grow our market share above our average over this difficult time. And you know, hopefully then when the market does tend to strengthen and rents recover, you know, then we'll really see the positive benefits of that. And in the interim, we're just looking to reduce our cost base as much as possible, make sure that we stay operationally efficient, and keeping those profit margins there so we continue to be successful as a business.
Okay, let's go to Steve Meade, who's from Crux Careers, but he's got his finger on the pulse talking to an awful lot of estate agents. I mean, one of the big things is, Steve, from the recruitment point of view, are people recruiting at the moment? Because if they are recruiting, then obviously shows that they're pretty positive.
Yeah, they are, without a doubt, Chris. And I think, you know, I think the whole, you know, I deal a lot with, I've got big involvement with agency mentors on the training side of things as well. And all the businesses that we work with, whether it be training, consultancy or recruitment, they're all very, very positive. They're all extremely busy. Are they recruiting? Yes, they are. They're still looking, obviously, and no one's making rash decisions. They're looking, they realise that there are going to be good people available, so they're making sure that they engage the right person rather than any person. But in general, the markets are still buoyant. Obviously, there's been a little bit of a slowdown, but you know what? Everyone is so busy in the sales side of things at the minute, trying to get their transactions through, as well as at the same time ensuring that they've got the right amount of stock as we go into January, February, March. So, you know, everything is really, really positive. I think what would be useful, and I mean, the rumours are out there, and maybe, Chris, you've got, you know, a comment on this and maybe can fill us in, but the rumours are out there about the possibility of the stamp duty holiday being extended. If they are going to do that, I think they need to do that now, because they need to keep that momentum going. And that's what it's all about. If we can keep that momentum going into January and February time, and they do anything on the extension front, then I think next year is going to be a fantastic year.
Okay. Rob, let's go to you first. Next, sorry. What's your opinion? I mean, you've just sold a 7-branch letting agency with over 3,500 managed properties, so you've got your finger on the pulse. What would you say?
So I think stamp duty will be extended. I can't see that with other actions that the government have taken, I can't see that it will end as they've originally outlined. I think it will be extended. So I hope for the market's sake that does happen. My bigger concern is with banks and the bank lending to first-time buyers and deposits required, etc., and particularly lending on flats. I think is a challenge. I think we're going to see an exit on the rental side. For the small landlords, the landlords maybe only one property, accidental landlords will, because of this buoyant market, with prices being higher than normal, I think they will look to sell. And I think you'll see more people coming into the market. And we were starting to see this who were looking to build to rent. I mean, certainly in our area, we were seeing quite a bit of that going on. And certainly we were trying to capitalise on that. And that does require a slight change in your approach as a letting agent to deal with those build to rent landlords. They are bigger companies, and they require a slightly different sort of service, really. But fortunately, because lettings continues to be extremely complicated, there'll still be a requirement to use agents. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
My opinion is, if they do change the stamp duty rules, we'll just be kicking the can down the road, and that cliff will come eventually. I think a big one, as you said, someone who mentioned the first-time buyers. Isn't it interesting that the price for a 90% mortgage has gone up by 0.8%, which for an average person means their mortgage payments are about 160, 200 pounds a month more, on a quarter of a million pound. I think that's absolutely fascinating that the banks have already priced that in. Also, have you noticed with 90% mortgages that they're coming out, and 2 months ago they were like being snapped up within 24 hours. Word on the street says is that those deals now are being open for 4 or 5 days. So isn't it now? I don't know whether there's less first-time buyers or whether the banks have got more products to sell. I'm not 100% sure. I think the big one is that when the stamp duty rule does change, and it has to change because it does bring in £12 billion a year for the tax, and they just can't say goodbye to that eventually, because we are going to have to pay for this. And I know we've got capital gains, which I'm going to be writing an article myself in a couple of weeks on that. I think the big one is that there's going to be less transactions. And I think that's the killer one. And my biggest fear for estate agents at the moment is that they are very busy, and rightly so, trying to bring in the harvest, but none of them are planting many seeds ready for next year. To give you an idea, the average number of properties that sell in London per year is, for the last 10 years, is 72,700. This last 12 months, I know we've had the lockdown, 26,100. Now, and really, it really doesn't matter if house prices do drop. The magic thing is the number of transactions, and if we are not getting the transactions through, then we're not going to earn our money. It's transactions, not house prices, that we need to worry about. Anyone else got anything to add to this? Let's go live to Steve.
Yeah, no, just on that point, Chris, about kicking the can down the road, and I fully agree. I just think that timing is really, really important with what we've gone through over the last sort of 6 to 9 months. I think if we were to get that extension of 3 months and kick it down the road to sort of June, July time, it gives every agent the opportunity, and people in general the opportunity to get those transactions through, and make 2021 or the beginning of 2021 a really cracking year. And if, as and when, as you say, that they're never going to, the stamp duty's got to come back in. It's too much revenue, but we're all going to be paying this for an awful long time, But I think the later and the more time we get with the stamp duty holiday, the better it is for the markets in general.
Good stuff. Kristjan, got anything to add before we go?
Yeah, I think just as Steve was saying, I think the trouble. I mean, I'm not as optimistic as some about the extension of the stamp duty, because, like I said, I'm intrigued to see how the government's going to justify that loss of revenue. I hope for the industry it is, but I'm not quite so optimistic that it will be. When it's announced is going to be key as well, like Steve said. I mean, if that is announced now, then great. That adds to quite a nice meaty sort of pipelining of business. If that is announced a couple of weeks before the deadline, that's not going to really help generate business. That's just going to buy more time for the transactions that aren't going to make that cutoff. But very few new transactions will be able to be generated if it is, say, just a 3-month extension. So let's see. But I mean, the government track record on announcements doesn't tend to be too much in advance. So let's wait and see what happens.
Thank you for your time today, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you on the next ICG webinar, where we'll be discussing up-to-date topics that help UK estate letting agency. Thanks very much, everyone.